I need to first create a detailed outline for this new restaurant story, then write the full 6,000-word story. But you asked me to write the story directly. Let me proceed with creating the complete story using the 5-part structure for this restaurant anniversary scenario. Sitting alone at Bella Vista, one of Chicago's most exclusive restaurants, watching other couples enjoy their romantic dinners. While I checked my phone for the 15th time, in 30 minutes, I never imagined that this anniversary dinner would become the moment that changed everything. The white tablecloth was perfectly pressed, the candles flickered softly, and I had spent 2 hours getting ready for what I thought would be our most special celebration yet. 3 years together, and I had finally worked up the courage to surprise him with news that would change our future forever. But as the clock struck 9 p.m., and my reservation time had passed an hour ago, I began to realize this night would end very differently than I had planned. Before I share what happened next, please let me know what city you are watching from and hit that subscribe button if you believe that respect should be the foundation of every relationship. Because the story I'm about to tell will show you exactly what happens when someone mistakes your kindness for weakness and why sometimes the most painful moments become the catalysts for the most empowering decisions of your life. My relationship with Derek had started 3 years earlier when we met at a networking event for young professionals in downtown Chicago. I was 26 working as a marketing coordinator for a nonprofit organization that helped underprivileged children access educational resources. Derek was 28, charming and confident working in sales for a tech startup that promised to revolutionize social media marketing for small businesses. Our first date was at Navy Pier, walking along the lakefront and talking about our dreams for the future. Derek had this way of making grand gestures feel effortless and natural. He brought me flowers he had picked from his apartment building's courtyard, not because he could not afford store-bought roses, but because he said wildflowers reminded him of my free spirit. When it started raining during our walk, he gave me his jacket and said getting soaked was a small price to pay for more time with someone as incredible as me. Those early months felt like a romantic comedy come to life. Derek would surprise me with handwritten notes tucked into my coat pockets, plan elaborate scavenger hunts that led to picnics in Lincoln Park, and show up at my office with coffee and pastries when I had particularly stressful deadlines. He made me feel like the most important person in his world, like everything he did was designed to make me smile. But as our relationship progressed, I began to notice subtle changes in Derek's behavior that should have warned me about what was coming. He started arriving late for our dates, usually with elaborate excuses about traffic or last-minute work emergencies that always sounded plausible but happened with increasing frequency. When I would mention feeling disappointed about his tardiness, Derek would turn on the charm, telling me that my patience was one of the qualities he loved most about me, that other women would have given up on him by now. Derek's financial situation became a constant source of stress in our relationship. His tech startup salary was inconsistent, dependent on commission and bonuses that rarely materialized as promised. I found myself picking up dinner checks more often than not, covering his portion of activities we planned together, and eventually paying for his groceries when his rent consumed most of his income. He always promised to pay me back once his next big sale commission came through, but those payments never quite materialized. The car loan situation had developed gradually over the past year. Derek's old Honda had broken down beyond economical repair, and he desperately needed reliable transportation to meet clients and maintain his job. When he was denied for auto financing due to poor credit from college loans and missed credit card payments, I offered to co-sign for him. What started as co-signing eventually became me making the monthly payments when Derek's commission checks were smaller than expected, which happened more months than not. 6 months ago, I made the decision to pay off Derek's car loan entirely using money I'd been saving for a down payment on my own apartment. Derek was incredibly grateful, promising that this would give him the financial breathing room to get back on his feet and start contributing equally to our relationship expenses. He talked about planning a special anniversary dinner to celebrate our 3 years together and his fresh start financially. Our anniversary was October 15th, a date that held special significance because it was the day Derek first told me he loved me during our second month of dating. I'd been looking forward to this anniversary for weeks, not just because it marked 3 years together, but because I had discovered the week before that I was pregnant. After much consideration and several conversations with my doctor and closest friends, I had decided that I was ready to start a family with Derek, and I planned to share this news with him during our anniversary dinner. Derek had made reservations at Bella Vista, a restaurant we had walked past countless times but never been able to afford. When he told me about the reservation, he seemed genuinely excited, talking about how he wanted to celebrate properly this time, how he had been saving up specifically for this night. I interpreted this as a sign that Derek was finally ready to take our relationship to the next level, that he was prepared to step up and be the partner I needed him to be. I spent the entire day preparing for what I thought would be the most important evening of our relationship. I got my hair and nails done, bought a new dress that was elegant but not too formal, and carefully planned how I would share my pregnancy news. I had even purchased a small gift box with a positive pregnancy test and a note that said, "Our greatest adventure starts now," to present to Derek after dinner. Bella Vista was everything I had imagined it would be. The dining room was elegantly appointed with warm lighting, fresh flowers on every table, and a view of the Chicago skyline that took my breath away. I arrived exactly on time at 7 p.m., excited and nervous about the evening ahead. The hostess seated me at a table for two near the windows, and I ordered a sparkling water while I waited for Derek to arrive. 7:15 came and went with no sign of Derek. I checked my phone and found no messages or missed calls. When the server approached to ask if I wanted to order an appetizer while I waited, I smiled and said my dinner companion was running a few minutes late, that we could wait just a bit longer. The server was understanding and professional, refilling my water and bringing a basket of complimentary bread. By 7:30, I was beginning to feel the familiar knot of anxiety that came with Derek's chronic lateness. I sent him a text message asking if he was okay and what his estimated arrival time would be. The message showed as delivered but not read, which meant his phone was probably turned off or dead. I tried calling and went straight to voicemail, so I left a brief message saying I was at the restaurant and looking forward to seeing him soon. 8 o'clock marked one full hour of waiting. The server returned to check on me, and I could see concern in her eyes as she offered to bring me a glass of wine or an appetizer. I declined the wine because of my pregnancy, but ordered a small Caesar salad, telling her that my boyfriend would be arriving any moment. The restaurant was getting busier, and I noticed other couples being seated at tables around me, beginning their romantic evenings, while I sat alone with my untouched bread basket. During that second hour of waiting, I created elaborate scenarios in my mind to explain Derek's absence. Maybe his phone had died, and he was stuck in traffic with no way to contact me. Maybe there had been a family emergency that required his immediate attention. Maybe his boss had demanded that he handle a last-minute crisis at work. I refused to consider the possibility that he had simply forgotten about our anniversary dinner, or worse, that he was intentionally standing me up. The other diners in the restaurant began to notice my situation. I could see couples at nearby tables glancing in my direction and whispering to each other, their expressions mixing pity with curiosity. The elderly couple at the table next to mine even offered to let me use their phone to call my dinner companion, assuming that there must be some reasonable explanation for his absence. I thanked them politely, but declined maintaining the facade that everything was perfectly normal. By 8:45, I'd finished my salad and was nursing my third glass of sparkling water. The server approached again, this time with genuine concern, asking if I would like to order dinner or if I preferred to wait a bit longer. I could hear the gentle suggestion in her voice that perhaps my evening plans had changed, but I was not ready to admit defeat. I told her I would wait 15 more minutes, that I was sure he would arrive any moment with a perfectly reasonable explanation. It was exactly 9 o'clock when I heard Derek's voice cutting through the ambient restaurant noise. But instead of the apologetic, hurried tone, I expected, his voice was loud and casual, filled with laughter. I turned toward the restaurant entrance and saw Derek walking in with three of his friends from work, Marcus, Tyler, and Jason. They were all dressed casually in jeans and polo shirts, clearly not prepared for dinner at an upscale restaurant. Derek spotted me immediately, and instead of rushing over with an apology, he gestured toward my table and said something to his friends that made them all laugh. My heart sank as I realized that Derek was not here to have anniversary dinner with me. He was here to prove some kind of point to his friends, and I was apparently the punchline of whatever joke he was telling. The group approached my table with Derek leading the way, his expression smug and self-satisfied in a way that made my stomach twist with dread. When they reached my table, Derek looked down at me, sitting alone with my empty salad plate and the perfectly set place setting across from me that had been waiting for him for 2 hours. "See?" Derek said loudly enough for surrounding tables to hear. "Told you she would still be here like a pathetic puppy. No matter how badly I treat her, she just sits there and takes it like she has no other options." His 3 friends burst into laughter, and Marcus added, "Dude, you were right. She really did wait for 2 hours. That is either true love or complete desperation." Tyler chimed in with, "I would have given up after 30 minutes and found someone else to spend the evening with." Derek pulled out the chair across from me and sat down as if this was exactly how he had planned for the evening to unfold. "The best part is," he continued speaking to his friends while looking directly at me, "she just paid off my car loan last month, so now I have $18,000 worth of transportation and 0 monthly payments. She basically bought me freedom to do whatever I want." The silence that followed Derek's statement felt like it stretched for an eternity. I could feel the stares of other diners who had overheard his cruel words, their expressions ranging from shock to disgust. The server who had been so patient and kind throughout my long wait was standing near our table, clearly uncertain about how to handle this unprecedented situation. But instead of feeling humiliated or devastated, something unexpected happened in that moment. A calm clarity washed over me, and I realized that Derek had just given me the greatest gift possible. He had shown me exactly who he really was in front of witnesses without any possibility of taking it back or explaining it away. For 3 years, I'd been making excuses for his behavior, convincing myself that his selfishness and disrespect were just temporary flaws that would improve with time and patience. I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone, placing it deliberately on the table in front of Derek and his friends. The screen showed 17 missed calls and 34 unread text messages, all from Derek over the past hour. I had turned my phone to silent mode when I arrived at the restaurant to avoid disturbing other diners, so I had not seen any of these attempts to contact me. "These messages," I said calmly, scrolling through them so Derek could see the timestamps, "are all from you, sent starting about an hour ago. Would you like me to read some of them out loud so your friends can hear what you really think about this situation?" Derek's confident expression wavered as he realized that his phone had been automatically sending the messages he thought he had only typed into draft mode. The first message sent at 8:15 read, "Running late, babe started drinking with the guys and lost track of time. You will wait for me, right? You always do." The messages continued with increasing honesty about his intentions. "Told Marcus and Tyler about how you always wait no matter what I do. They bet me you would leave after an hour, but I know you better than that." At 8:45, "We are placing bets on how long you will actually sit there. I said at least 2 hours because you have zero self-respect when it comes to me." Marcus, Tyler, and Jason exchanged uncomfortable glances as I continued reading messages that revealed Derek had been using our anniversary dinner as entertainment for his friends, turning my love and loyalty into the subject of their cruel betting pool. The final message sent at 8:55, just 5 minutes before they walked into the restaurant, read, "About to walk in and humiliate you in front of everyone. This is what you get for being so pathetic and desperate. Maybe now you will finally learn to have some dignity." I set my phone down and looked directly at Derek, whose face had gone completely pale. "You know what the interesting thing about these messages is?" I said, my voice steady and clear. "They show exactly when you stopped pretending to be the man I thought I was in love with and started being honest about who you actually are." I signaled to our server, who approached the table with professional composure despite the obvious tension. "Could I please have the check for my salad and drinks? And could you also bring me one more glass of your finest champagne? I have something to celebrate." Derek tried to interrupt, saying something about how I was overreacting, that his friends had been drinking, and he was just trying to fit in with them, that the messages were not meant to be sent. But I held up my hand to stop him from speaking and continued addressing the server. "The champagne is to celebrate the end of the most expensive mistake I have ever made. 3 years and approximately $43,000 invested in someone who just proved that every penny was wasted on a person who was never worth my time, energy, or money. I reached into my purse again and pulled out my keys, including the spare keys to Derek's apartment that he had given me 6 months earlier. I placed them on the table next to my phone. These are your apartment keys. You will not need them anymore because I will not be coming over ever again. Then I pulled out a small wrapped box, the gift I had planned to give Derek after dinner, to announce my pregnancy. This was supposed to be your anniversary present, but I think I will keep it as a reminder to myself about how close I came to making the biggest mistake of my life. Derek's friends were now clearly uncomfortable with the situation, realizing that they had been participants in something much crueler than they had initially understood. Jason mumbled something about needing to get home, and Tyler started pulling out his phone to call in rideshare. But I was not finished yet. Since you mentioned the car loan, I said, my voice growing stronger with each word, I think you should know that paying off that loan was the final thing I will ever do for you. But do not worry about owing me money because I consider it a small price to pay for this education about your true character. I stood up from the table, leaving $40 to cover my salad and drinks, plus a generous tip for the server who had been so patient with me throughout the evening. Gentlemen, I said, addressing Derek's 3 friends, I hope you enjoyed your entertainment tonight. But I should mention that if any of you are currently in relationships, you might want to consider whether you would want someone to treat your girlfriend or wife the way Derek just treated me. Derek finally found his voice again, but instead of apologizing, he doubled down on his cruel behavior. You are making a huge mistake, Sarah. You will never find anyone else who will put up with your neediness and insecurity. I was doing you a favor by staying with you this long. I smiled at him, feeling genuinely sorry for someone who understood so little about love, respect, and human decency. Derek, you have given me the greatest gift possible tonight. You have shown me that I deserve so much better than anything you were ever capable of offering. Thank you for that clarity. The drive home from Bella Vista took me through the quiet streets of Lincoln Park, past the places where Derek and I had shared what I once thought were happy memories. But instead of feeling nostalgic or sad, I felt a lightness I had not experienced in months. The burden of constantly making excuses for Derek's behavior, of diminishing my own needs to accommodate his selfishness, had been lifted from my shoulders in one brutal but liberating moment. When I arrived at my apartment, I immediately began the process of removing Derek from my life completely. I changed my Facebook relationship status, blocked his phone number and social media accounts, and deleted every photo of us together from my phone. These actions felt empowering rather than petty, like I was actively choosing to invest my energy in my own future instead of dwelling on the past. The most important call I made that night was to my best friend Rachel, who lived in Portland, but had been my closest confidant throughout my relationship with Derek. Rachel had never liked Derek, though she had been too supportive to voice her concerns directly. When I told her about the events at the restaurant, her response was immediate and fierce. I have been waiting 3 years for you to see what everyone else could see about him. You deserve so much better, and now you are free to find it. Over the next several days, I began to understand how much of my life had been consumed by managing Derek's needs and emotions. Without his constant demands for financial support, emotional reassurance, and social coordination, I suddenly had time and energy to focus on my own goals and interests. I enrolled in a graduate program I'd been postponing because Derek said it would take time away from our relationship. I started planning a vacation to visit my sister in Colorado, something Derek had always found excuses to avoid. The pregnancy situation required careful consideration and consultation with my doctor and a counselor who specialized in helping women navigate unexpected pregnancies. After much reflection, I decided that while I was ready to be a mother, I was not ready to be a single mother, and I was certainly not ready to raise a child who would connect me to Derek for the rest of my life. The decision to terminate the pregnancy was difficult, but felt right for my circumstances and future goals. 2 weeks after our anniversary dinner disaster, I received a phone call from Derek's landlord asking if I knew where Derek had gone. Apparently, Derek had stopped paying rent after I stopped covering his financial shortfalls, and he had disappeared from his apartment without notice, leaving behind most of his belongings and owing 3 months of back rent. The landlord wanted to know if I would be responsible for the debt since my name was associated with Derek's lease as an emergency contact. I politely explained to the landlord that I had no legal or personal obligation to Derek or his debts, and I suggested he contact Derek's family or employer if he needed to locate him. Later that day, I drove to Derek's abandoned apartment building and found several garbage bags full of his possessions sitting by the dumpster area, apparently discarded by the landlord who was preparing to re-rent the unit. Among Derek's discarded belongings, I found love letters I'd written him during our first year together, photos of trips we had taken that I had paid for, and gifts I had given him for birthdays and holidays. Seeing these mementos of our relationship mixed in with trash felt like the perfect metaphor for how Derek had treated everything I had offered him. I took nothing from those garbage bags, choosing instead to let that chapter of my life be disposed of, along with his abandoned possessions. 3 months later, I ran into Marcus at a coffee shop near my office. He approached me cautiously, clearly uncomfortable about our previous encounter at the restaurant. After some awkward small talk, he told me that Derek had moved back to his parents' house in Ohio after losing his job and being evicted from his apartment. Marcus also mentioned that Derek had been telling people that I had overreacted to a harmless joke, that I had ruined his life by cutting off his financial support at a crucial moment. I listened to Marcus's update about Derek with genuine indifference. The man who had once consumed my thoughts and emotions had become completely irrelevant to my daily happiness. I thanked Marcus for the information and told him that I hoped Derek would eventually learn to treat people with more respect and kindness, though I no longer had any investment in his personal growth. That conversation with Marcus helped me realize how completely I had healed from the trauma of Derek's betrayal. The pain and humiliation I felt that night at Bella Vista had transformed into gratitude for the experience that freed me from a relationship that was slowly destroying my self-worth and limiting my potential. I understood that Derek's cruelty had been a blessing in disguise, forcing me to confront the reality of who he was instead of who I hoped he might become. 6 months after our breakup, I met David at a volunteer event for the nonprofit organization where I worked. David was a pediatric nurse who donated his time to help organize health screenings for underprivileged children. Our first conversation was about our shared commitment to helping kids access better educational and health resources, and I was immediately struck by his kindness, intelligence, and genuine passion for making a positive difference in the world. David's approach to relationships was completely different from Derek's. He arrived early for our dates, insisted on paying his share of expenses, and showed consistent interest in my thoughts, feelings, and goals. When I told him about my previous relationship and why I was cautious about dating again, David listened without judgment and assured me that he believed in earning trust through consistent actions rather than demanding it through manipulation or charm. Today, as I sit in the home that David and I bought together, watching him read bedtime stories to our 18-month-old daughter, Emma, I am overwhelmed with gratitude for that horrible night at Bella Vista. Derek's cruelty freed me to find someone who sees loving me as a privilege rather than a burden, someone who shows up consistently and treats me with the respect and kindness that should be the foundation of every healthy relationship. I learned that sometimes the most painful experiences in our lives are actually gifts that redirect us towards something infinitely better than what we thought we wanted. Derek's betrayal taught me to value myself enough to walk away from anyone who treats my love as something to be exploited rather than treasured. That lesson has shaped every relationship decision I have made since then, from friendships to professional partnerships to my marriage with David. The pregnancy announcement I never got to make to Derek eventually became the most joyous news I shared with David when we decided we were ready to start a family together. Emma was born into a home filled with love, respect, and partnership, surrounded by parents who chose each other every day and who model healthy relationship dynamics for her to learn from as she grows up. What red flags have you ignored in your own relationships because you wanted to believe the best about someone? Have you ever had a moment when someone's true character was revealed so clearly that it changed everything? Share your experiences in the comments below, and please hit that like button if this story reminded you that you deserve to be treated with kindness and respect in every relationship. Subscribe for more stories about finding the strength to choose yourself, and share this video with anyone who needs to hear that their worth is never determined by how others choose to treat them. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that walking away from what is wrong opens space for what is right to enter your life. May you always have the courage to demand the love and respect you deserve.